Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bravo Tea with a Stay at Home Mom. I'm Erica, and I'm ready to talk all things Bravo.
Welcome back, everybody. And on this episode, I'm going to be rewinding it back to an episode I did with the Bravo Babe, where we recapped the season finale of The Real Housewives of New Jersey, because I am currently on my vacation in Disney World. So enjoy. Welcome back, everybody. And I am joined by Christina, aka the Bravo Babe. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you? Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming on for this season finale of The Real Housewives of New Jersey. I thought it was so mob wife-esque. I don't know if you watched Mob Wives back in the
Oh,
day,
yes.
like, didn't it remind you, like, they were all getting their fur coats and they're like,
The
"Oh,
way they
we're
were sitting
ready."
at the table and saying, I'm sitting across from who, that final sit down with
Yeah.
Drita and Karen and Mob Wives, I totally got that vibe.
Yeah, and, like, they're coming in their furs, like, it was giving me, like, Sopranos/Mob Wives vibe.
And I think that's what editing was going for. They were trying to show us that, like, I feel like final closing, like coffin vibe.
And we were at Rail's Steakhouse, where I almost forgot before they showed that, like, flashback, that's where they had that chat with Jacqueline. I remember she's like, "I don't wanna sit with you and Melissa," and that was when
Yes.
Siggy was on. So Dolores has already been there, done that at Rail's, trying to, like, mediate and do, like, a sit down.
Yes. And side note, love that episode because Jacqueline, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated housewives that
Mhm.
we've seen ever. And she threw it right back to Teresa in that episode. She says, "Is bitch better?"
Yeah, oh my god, I know. And that was, like, when Teresa and Melissa were getting along. Sometimes
Mhm,
people say it was fake for the show. I don't know how much I believe that, but,
mhm. No,
I miss that time when they
I
had
do
each other's back.
too. It's nostalgic now because it's never happening again, unfortunately.
I know, and it's like, I just feel like if Teresa was a little more like, "All right, let's just try to be copacetic," I think they could get along, because Melissa seems like easier than Teresa, I'm just gonna say that.
Definitely. And I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying that they think Melissa is standing in the way of a Joe and Teresa relationship, but I feel like it's the total opposite. I feel like if
Mhm.
anything, she was always the bridge that, brought them together because they had issues outside of Melissa. They
Yeah.
had issues, so
My
I don't know.
last guest I had on, Sarah from Pumped Up Tea, last week for the Jersey recap, she said it good. She said that she feels like Teresa has, like, that toxic boy mom energy relationship with Joe. So that, like, no woman would be good enough to marry him.
Or
Like,
her brother, right? Just like the
yeah.
moms of boys do. I totally can relate to that.
Yeah, because I was
Admit my
like,
son's only 5, but I just there's somebody at the playground and I'm like, "Oh."
"Oh, okay, so you're a boy mom." So I'm a girl mom, I have 2 daughters, but, like, I could see that. Like, it's a weird, like, relationship, but to me, it's just weird because Joe has never said, "Oh, like, I hate Melissa," or "Our marriage is awful," for Teresa to almost step in and take that role of, "Let me protect my brother."
Mhm, you're exactly right.
So, I'm sad that maybe this is the last time we're gonna see everybody, but let's dive in and recap this episode.
Okay.
So we pick up with Joe and Melissa FaceTiming the youngest son, which is so funny. He's at the mall, and as a boy, he is lost shopping, and she's like, "Buy long school pants," and he's like, "I don't know how to do that. You need to come with me."
Yeah, I always need your mom. You always
Yeah.
need your mom.
Especially, like, I feel like Italian culture, like, the moms just do everything, and they're used to that, and they're like, "I don't know
Yes.
how to buy
He
pants."
probably grew up that way, he 100% grew up that way.
I feel like Joe's still like that, and he just turned, like, 50 the other day.
Mhm, that's just the way that house is ran. They need Melissa, you always
Yeah.
need your mom.
Yeah, yeah. And, Margaret is setting up this, like, delicious spread. I hate when they, like, have yummy food late at night when we watch these shows, because 'cause I'm like, "Oh my god, I want that Magnolia Bakery banana pudding and those cronuts so bad." And, Jen Fessler comes over, so she opted to not go and listen to James Leonard talk. So, also, I was like, the timeline, it said later that morning, and I was like, "Oh my god, what time were they at Teresa's house? Like 8 AM? Because it's still morning time."
Right.
And So Dolores calls. She's on her way from the shit show that was at Teresa's house with James Leonard. And she just like looks so drained in her Juicy Couture velour sweatsuit, which was also
Right?
giving me like Sopranos vibes, like Paulie Walnuts, like always wearing the velour tracksuit. Like, of course, Dolores wore a velour tracksuit to have a sit down meeting with a lawyer.
Yes.
But I couldn't believe how angry Dolores got when Margaret was kind of like telling her, "Oh, I know last year when we all met here before the reunion, like you weren't going to come and I invited you." And Dolores is like, "No, you did not." And she got so red. And I was like, "Oh my God." It reminded me of when Danielle Staub came back and she's
Yes.
like, "Yeah, you told me that Teresa only cares about money." She's like, "You liar. I never said that. Welcome back, scumbag." And it
Yes.
reminded me of
And
that.
even then, I feel like we have not seen Dolores so triggered. I was
Mhm.
comparing times that she's been upset or mad to last night with what she, went through with Margaret. We've never seen her so activated to the point where she was standing up, she was sitting down, I mean, I think they had to bleep her mouth like 20 times in that small scene. She was on fire.
Oh, I know. She called her a lying "see you next Tuesday." And I was like,
She
"Oh."
did. And like, listen, the uncensored version on Peacock, everybody needs to go listen
I
to
have
it
to watch it.
because, yes, the clips are floating around Twitter too. But I feel like when you hear a housewife swear like that, it makes it feel so much more real.
I know, especially for later, like when they all sit down, there was a lot of F-bombs. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
I have to watch it the next day, like on Peacock unedited, because the Vanderpump Rules reunion too just hit different with all those F words and stuff.
I can't even get started. I'm going to nod my head. I can't get started on Vanderpump. I'll never stop.
I know. But Margaret is very calm, but that's why I'm like, okay, I definitely out of all of them never ever like second guess what Dolores is saying. I think she's very
Right.
truth telling. But I think Margaret is truth telling as well. She just keeps info in the back pocket. But I don't think
Mhm.
she's ever lying.
I don't feel like either of them are lying in this situation. I think it was a serious communication issue. I think maybe Dolores, just dismissed whatever Margaret had said. And I think that Margaret just very lightly put it out there to Dolores. So I think that it was very unserious and just a miscommunication from both of them. So when Dolores, goes after Margaret, she means what she's saying because she believes that's her truth. And when Margaret says that she's taken aback and she was going to cry because Dolores called her a "see you next Tuesday," that's because she was really
Mhm.
hurt because she thought she was telling her truth.
Yeah. And this is when it has to get hard for Dolores because she doesn't play both sides of the fence because they said that later on Watch What Happens Live. That
Mhm.
is like doing stuff behind each other's back and stuff to me,
Right.
playing both sides. She just really is neutral,
Mhm. She
but
really
it
is.
comes hard.
Mhm.
Like it's
Yeah.
hard, it's getting hard for her to be neutral because people are saying and doing such mean stuff that how can you not look at your friend, even though if it's your friend, and say, "That is so mean and messed up you did that."
Right. I'm not sure if you Watch What Happens Live last night with
I
Dolores
did.
and Danny Pellegrino. So they asked Dolores to say something about each cast member, and she
Mhm.
said something positive, friendly, nice about every single person on the cast. And it
I
made me
liked that.
realize, like, wow, that's why she was center in the cast photo because she really is the only one that has a genuine or at least better connection with every person than anybody else does. So I was like, okay, now
Mhm.
wrapping it up, it makes sense why she was in the center for, the photo intro.
Yeah, I liked that she said something positive, and even though Jackie called her a slob, she still found something positive to say about her, which was
She did.
nice. Yeah. No, I know. I love to Watch What Happens Live. We'll have to talk about that at the end too. But Margaret, I don't blame her. So she said that she did talk to the ex because Dolores is basically like, "Did you do that? Why would you ever do that?" She's like, "Yeah, I did to validate the Bo Dietl stuff because of what happened to my son." So I don't think that's wrong because these women are reaching out, which is what her and like Melissa said. Um, Everyone said all the exes have reached out before. It's just if you want to answer them. So after that
Mhm.
happened with Margaret, she's probably like, "Yeah, I'm going to answer them and get some like insight of who I'm dealing with.
Right, absolutely. And I don't blame her if, you know, if I was in her position or her situation, I would have answered the DM. I would have said, "Oh, like, tell me something I can use, like, because this is happening
Mhm.
to me and my family and my son. You have to have something to put in your back pocket in case you need it." Not necessarily saying you're going to go and blast, Louis in the blogs and put all these things out there like somebody did, but
Mhm.
just to have it in your back pocket and say, "You know what? I have this." And that's the kind of game she plays.
Yeah, or it's like just to protect yourself too, like, it's like, how scary is he? Should I be calling a lawyer? Should I be,
Mhm.
like, locking my doors at night? Like, I feel like it was almost just like, would he hurt my son? He did this, so what else will he do?
Like, what's
And
the
she
next
was
step? He called him.
yeah,
We saw what he said last night with the whole suffering thing. We'll get
that
to
was
that.
sick.
But yeah,
I know. The weirdest part about the reunion last year, like, I don't really understand when Andy was like, "Oh, is this your phone number?" And he's like, "Yeah, but I didn't make that call." It's like, "What do you mean? I don't
was it
understand."
Bodito?
Yeah, and it's like, "But it's your phone number." And then remember
Right,
Teresa was trying to defend it, and she's like, "Oh, look at my phone right now. It says Margaret Josephs is calling me, but you're not calling me." I don't understand that because I get spam risk BS calls all day long, but it doesn't say, like, my friends or my husband's name, and
right.
it's not them. So, did you understand that when he said, "Oh, no, that's not me?"
In the moment, no, but with like further context, they were saying it was like a spoof call. Like people I don't know how it works, but you can use an app and spoof somebody if I have no
Oh,
idea.
that is
But
so weird.
so like I could call you and it could say that Kyle Richards is calling you.
That is so
And it
weird.
was it was weird though that it just happened to be during the reunion that Teresa got one of these phone calls.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
why I'm so
either
weird.
a coincidence or set up by probably James Leonard or something to validate what they were saying.
I know, like, even sometimes when they pull out screenshots and stuff, which I always love, honestly, like, nowadays, you could put, like, let's say I change my husband's name to, like, Margaret Joseph's in my phone, and then
Mhm.
I'm just having a conversation, and he's saying exactly what I want him to say back, and then I print that out. Well, that doesn't mean that's really Margaret Joseph's, it's just the name title says Margaret Joseph's.
Right.
So sometimes I can't believe some of these screenshots unless we have records from both phones.
Yes, that's why it's so hard with Jersey especially to keep up because you have to see both sides and that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I was glad though that Dolores and Margaret hugged it out at the end, and Jen Fessler was so funny. She's like, "Is this your best wine? Because it's awful." The red wine.
Yes,
She's like, "But I'm gonna drink it anyway."
there's nothing worse than a bad red wine.
Oh, I
I
know.
can
And I
taste it
love
now.
red
No,
wine.
thank you. But Jen Fessler, I feel like she she's good to have in situations like that with Dolores and Margaret because she will just stay back and watch everything. And then if the story
Mhm.
gets brought up again, she is very reliable to say, "Nope, this is what happened. I was there. I saw it." She's very matter of
Mhm.
fact in that way.
Yeah, I was a little I was proud that Jen Fessler didn't go because she is like a loyal friend. She reminds me of a Dolores kind of like loyalty, but I
Mhm.
would have been like, "Hey, I'm gonna go just so I can like verbatim tell you what happened in that
That's
meeting,
what
and
you
you
would
can
think,
trust
right?
me."
She would be a good person to have there for that reason.
Yeah, like as long as my friend is telling me, I'm going to report back to you. I'm not
Yes.
going to like throw a torch at you and like join in the like band against you.
Mhm.
I'd be like, "Yeah,
Right.
be the insider so you can tell me exactly what happened,
Yes.
honestly."
Keep your friends close, your enemies closer. You have to do it.
Yes, but then we see Danielle and Melissa going over to Rachel's house, and John Fuda is okay, even though he had that anaphylactic reaction, and I know, we were like my husband and I were like, "Can you even be allergic to bone marrow? Like, was it the alcohol?" Because then I was listening to Kim D's podcast, and she's like, "Literally, maybe that happened because he chugged straight liquor for 10 more
Right?
seconds."
It was something.
It was weird, yeah, and obviously something was going on though, because he could barely talk and he was red. But he is safe and well, and Danielle is just telling them about the whole meeting because she did go, and she said that Margaret sent that flower arrangement and she had to compose herself sitting there. But she's like, the last episode, that was great. She's like, that is the most gangster thing
Gangster
I have
thing.
ever seen, which it was. That was,
It really
I
was.
was dead.
That was a checkmate move,
I know.
hardcore.
I know.
It
And it
was
was kind of
it.
weird because do you remember back like when Margaret first came on the show and she ordered that wreath for Teresa after her mom passed away
Mhm.
and they set it out to sea? And I was like, wait, this is like a wreath again, but it's like in a mean way. I was like, that's so weird.
That just goes to show, like, what a solid and good housewife Margaret Josephs is, though. I
Mhm.
guarantee that in her mind, she was like, this is a full circle, closure, done with you, a literal nail in the coffin moment. I know
Mhm.
she had to have remembered that she did that floral arrangement in the past, you know? And
Oh,
she
yeah.
knew
And
that fans would pick up on it. I think that it was very well played.
I think it was hilarious when Teresa was like, tell her to shove it up her ass, get off my property. I was like, I'm sure that guy isn't going to go to her house, be like, here, I need to shove this flower arrangement up your
Right,
ass.
that poor guy was like, I'm just doing my job, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. He probably just went back to the flower shop and was like, what a shit show this is. Like,
He's like, I had to
probably,
sign a waiver. Now I'm on television.
I know. And like, I feel like there was no name of like the floral store, but like, I need to
No,
know the store that delivered that. Maybe they didn't want that. They wanted to keep anonymous on purpose.
that's funny. I didn't think about that.
But I'm wondering if we'll, like, find out who like, whose floral shop that was
Right.
because that would be funny. But, Danielle is also filling Rachel and Melissa in saying that she feels like there's so much tension and stress in Teresa's house that she is 90 pounds soaking wet. I like that she used that metaphor, which is kind of funny, but Teresa is so thin. And then Rachel was like, "Oh, it's not stress, it's called Ozempic." And I don't know for a fact because there are a lot of housewives that do take Ozempic, but I really, truly, sadly believe she was that skinny looking because of the stress for real.
I could totally see it. And I feel like she was always somebody who was like, she worked out, she took
Mhm,
care of her body. But to see her now this season, she looks different. And it could be she just looks different because she's worn down, she's stressed, she
mhm,
lost weight. You know, what you're talking about now with Danielle saying that there's not a lot of calm in the home. We
mhm,
see in the trailer for the season, Louis and Teresa and a producer talking about a situation that Teresa doesn't want to talk about. But unfortunately, they don't show it during the season. So
I
it's like
know.
we have no context for what Danielle is saying. And, you know, we just have to go off of her word. I wish that we would have saw that scene, you know, to
Yeah.
put it all together.
I know, I was super confused because I always remember everything from the trailer, like you said, and I'm like,
Right.
"Wait, did we ever even see that scene?"
Right.
Because you could tell, like, they were just happened to get into a convo, and Teresa's, like, probably freaking out, and it's like, "I don't want this on camera."
Because she has to be in control. That's totally what happened.
Mhm. And, I feel like Rachel and Melissa are just like, well, it's all Louis. And Melissa's confessional was actually like so creepy. So she said that all of them have gotten the DMs, emails, certified letters from all these women. So there's not just one ex, there's like multiple exes, and they all have similar stories. So that to me is a common denominator.
Mhm.
But then when she said when they were down the shore and his niece from his first marriage came up to Melissa and was like, "You should be very afraid." Like, what? That is so creepy. Like, now you can say, like, oh, that's his ex-wife's family, so they're just like bitter. But no, you need to listen to these people when they come up to you and say stuff like that.
Yes, they have real stories. You know, they have
Mhm.
some kind of connection to Louis, and these people want his business out there for a reason. And I hope that that reason is to protect the other women and the children, you know, and that's the vibe that I'm getting.
I know, and all the daughters seem like they like him, but what do you think? Because 'Cause they're all smart, especially Gia, and then I wonder about Joe Giudice.
I wonder the same. I wonder if when the cameras are up and things are happening, they, do those family scenes together and they have confessionals where they talk highly of each other. I do try to remember that the girls aren't really home. They're away at school. I don't know if Gia lives at home or if I'm not sure, but
She
they're
does
not
now.
always there. So maybe they don't see or they're not as involved as we think they are.
Mhm.
I don't know. I feel like we've only seen positive things from the daughters about Louis.
I know, that's why I'm like, I guess if he really was weird, but also he could be like you said, faking it while they're in the house.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, that's
Or
what
Teresa is
they,
just super ride or die.
yes. And, those girls, that's what they were raised knowing to do. They were raised knowing when to
Mhm.
turn it on for the cameras, when the cameras were rolling, what they should say, what was off limits for that's all they know.
True, definitely, especially Adriana, like, she was born on the show. She knows nothing
Yes.
but having those cameras in her
Exactly.
house, which we never see her.
Never, never.
And, yeah, I feel like we just see Gia the most. How do you feel about, like, Gia always being involved too? Because Melissa made the comment when Danielle said Gia was there, she's like, "Oh," like, she needed backup.
I think that Teresa brings Gia around so she has a loyal soldier. And I'm going to use that term because that's what Gia acts as
Mhm,
whenever she's around the ladies and Teresa. So, and Teresa knows that. That's why she brings her around. They have like a little pact together.
mhm.
That aside, though, I adore Gia. I think that she is smart. I think that she is well spoken. I like her opinions. I don't necessarily agree with them, but I appreciate that she puts it out there. Um, I'm excited for the Making It in Manhattan show that she'll be on. I do like
Mhm,
having her around. And I kind of compare it to like, when Lauren Manzo was around or when Brianna was around in OC. It's not the
mhm.
first time we've seen a daughter or, a child have such like an integral part of the show. I think it's just hard for people because we saw Gia when she was like 8 years old and people still
Mhm.
have that, notion of her in their head that she's this, little girl, but she's not. And she can, speak when she wants to speak. And if Teresa brings her around, then, it is what it is.
I think that's, like, when I go back and forth, I'm like, yeah, like you said, there have been other daughters that have been involved, and then I'm like, but when Gia started on the show, she was little. So,
Hmm.
like you said, we think of her as little, and the one time when her and Joe Gorga, that was, like, a couple seasons ago. Remember him and Gia kinda got into the fight,
Hmm.
and she's like, "I'm an adult and stuff," and it's like, technically you are, but to him, you're never gonna be an adult because he's, like, 50 years old and you're 22.
Right.
So, yes, you are a
Exactly.
legal adult, but to him, you are a child because he has children like your age.
Yes, exactly.
So, I think that's what she doesn't get either.
No, I don't think she gets that. That's a good point.
Like,
And it's
and
sad because she wants to be respected as an adult, but it's
mhm.
just hard for these adults to see her that way.
Yeah, and it's like, it's fine if, like, Joe and Melissa's kids you could tell they really don't wanna be on the show, and that's fine, but I don't like that since Teresa's daughters do, then, like, when they had those family scenes back then, they would, like, put Joe on the spot and, like, down him and Melissa and be like, "Oh, well, this blah, 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 blah," and it's like, well, let's say Antonia wanted to be filmed, I'd love to have her have that conversation with Teresa, how would that go?
Mhm.
Like, she'd probably
Exactly.
be like, "Joe, tell your daughter to show me respect and blah, blah, blah," and it's like, "Well, same."
Right. It would have been I never thought of it that way. It would have been a whole different story if the roles were reversed.
Yeah, and it's like, that's sometimes what I don't like about Teresa. She's definitely like, "Do as I say, not as I do," and I don't like that. I don't have
Right.
time in my life to deal with people like that. It's like,
Mhm.
"No, we need to be the same," and then Danielle is saying I thought that was very interesting when she said to Melissa and Rachel, like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to the sit down and whatever," because 'cause they're like, "Are you fine to be there with Jennifer?" And she said, "Yeah, and, I'm just gonna express how I feel and blah, blah, blah." And she said, "I feel like I've been a really good friend to her, better than Teresa, because at least I listen to her."
Mhm.
And I could see that. I bet, like, when Teresa calls, since she's like, "Oh, I'm Teresa," like, she maybe doesn't even ask about Jennifer's life.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think that a lot of the conversations probably do center around Teresa and what she has going on.
Mhm. And maybe Jennifer lets that happen too, because I think Jennifer loves to be Teresa Giudice's friend.
She
Like,
does.
I think they do actually have a friendship because they do hang out off camera. When I see these
Mhm.
people, when they don't have to be together and it's not being filmed, I'm like, okay, you actually do like each other.
And I like seeing that, right.
Yeah. And yeah, I like seeing that too, because then it's like real, because I feel like we're getting away from all these shows used to start with an actual friend group
Mhm.
or like family and friends. But
Yes.
it's like Jacqueline, Teresa, Nina, Caroline, they were all actually friends and
And
family.
that's like
So
the
it made
core.
sense.
And when you don't have that core, it's like, where does the show go?
Yeah. Or it's like I do like new people, but I hate when they get a new person that you're like, who the hell's that?
Like Rachel Fuda.
Yeah. The only thing that saved her, which I guess I understood, was the boys go to school together. But it's like, okay, the boys go to school together, but like, were you friends?
Right. And like Rachel is closer in age to Gia than she is to Teresa. The
Oh, I
whole
know.
casting of
Rachel's my age.
yeah, she's closer in age to Gia than she is Teresa. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
whole casting her didn't make sense to me.
I know, and I get why they're trying to get younger housewives with the kids because that's how it started, and I do love watching that because that's me in my life, like, I have little kids, and it
Mhm.
keeps it entertaining and, like, takes away from the drama some because the kids, like, say, like, goofy, funny stuff and whatever,
Right.
but it's true, it's like we got Teresa's, like, in her 50s, and now Rachel's 33.
It's just too big of a gap. When Teresa
Mhm.
looks at her and says, I think she just says, like, she didn't say you're irrelevant, but the way she said it, it was like, oh, she's just basically telling you you're a non factor for me. And I think a lot of it is because Rachel was so dismissed this
Mhm.
season and not taken seriously, but her casting didn't make sense to me. So
I did like her, though. Do you like her and Danielle as, like, newcomers?
I like Danielle as a newcomer. Rachel didn't do much for me.
Okay. I don't mind because I thought the, like, interesting part was, like, seeing, John Fuda get a little involved, I will say, even though people don't like that, but I'm like, "No, I kinda like that he was going toes with Teresa." It made it
Mhm.
interesting.
With Jersey, you definitely need the house husband. They're not going to cast somebody who's
Mhm,
single without a boyfriend, without a family. They're going to
mhm,
cast somebody who has a husband that they know would speak up or get along with, the other men, and that they have a family that they can show, because that's, the core of Jersey is different than other franchises in that way, to where I think it's definitely always centered around the family aspect and then branches out from there.
I know sometimes people are like, "Oh, enough, we don't need to see the husbands." I'm like, "No, I actually enjoy watching them because
Mhm.
it's funny." And then it makes more sense, like, when you almost get to know someone's husband, their personality.
Definitely. It gives you all the context.
Yeah, because I feel like out of all the franchises, we see, like, the husbands, like, the least on, like, Beverly Hills.
Mhm.
Like, they'll
Probably.
come to, like, parties, but we never get, like, alone filming with them.
Mhm.
And I'm like, probably because they all aren't friends, honestly. But then we get Danielle texting her dad.
Mhm.
Um, so they're doing like a code word. They're calling him Sam in front of the kids, which is nice. I like that she doesn't want to, like, just because she's having problems with her dad, doesn't want to like badmouth him in front of her kids. So that's very nice. And she said up until then, like Nate was still like, doing the contacting, but now she wants to reach out to him. And he did answer her back. And Nate's like, if you want, I will be like more stern and like almost, I guess, push her to be the bigger person, but I think Nate is like such a good husband. He's very like there for Danielle and kind of like wants to do whatever makes her comfortable.
Yes, I definitely think so. And I think that in that situation with the dad, it seems like it's hard because Nate, from what it sounds like, still does talk to Danielle's dad. They
Mhm.
have some kind of relationship. So I feel like for him, he's trying to, be the mediator and say, this is my wife's family that I want to be together.
Mhm.
So he kind of has to play middleman. And, I think Danielle reaching out to him again was great.
Mhm.
The scene kind of fell flat for me. I don't feel like it was like finale worthy, like
I know.
You know, like it was another nice typical family scene that I would have saw in episode 7, but for it to be the finale episode, I was kind of just like, man, this is where, you know, her storyline for the season with her dad kind of ends. It's just
I know. I feel like we wasted a little time with that.
we did just a
Instead,
little.
we wanted to see the scene of Louis and Teresa saying, "I don't want to talk about that."
For real, something.
I know. They probably have so much footage too. Like, that's what they need to do. Remember when they used to do those like lost footage things?
Yes.
They did it one year for Jersey, and the whole hour was hilarious.
It's probably funny and it's probably drama filled, and then you have, you know, scenes that could have been in the season that would have changed the dynamic of the whole season, but that they got cut.
Yeah, they
I
really
wanna
should
see
give
that.
us that because they, shit it out on us for the season anyway. Because did you see the pictures? So I know they still wouldn't have been able to stay at the property, but you know how Dolores is like, the house burnt down to the studs and blah, blah, blah. The garage burnt down to the studs.
It was the garage. The house was untouched and
Mhm.
away from the garage, totally detached.
Mhm.
Yeah, drama.
So I'm like, okay, I get that you still can't stay there, obviously, but like, it wasn't the house. Let's just let's
Right,
clarify
it
that.
wasn't. It
I
wasn't.
know.
We totally got screwed out of that because I, in my heart of hearts, feel like we were going to get a Dorinda cameo in that
Yes.
episode from that trip. Oh, we were so robbed.
That's what they said. They said they were gonna go to Bluestone Manor. They should have just freaking stayed at Bluestone Manor.
I know, right? They totally could have. But now we know that, side note, Dorinda is in the works to film her own TV show, kind of like Lisa Vanderpump style. Bravo picked it up.
I saw that.
Yes, I'm trying to think what they had it called or what the concept was, and now my words are getting mumbled, but Dorinda is getting, you know, that kind of show at Bluestone Manor, so at least we'll see it then.
I know. I wonder what they're gonna do.
I don't know. I mean, like, are they gonna I don't know. Is it gonna be like
Remember how
Airbnb and
crazy?
they, like, take care of the guests? Like, what you know, what's it going to be like?
Because remember how crazy she was during that girls' trip? Like, don't bring food upstairs. Don't do this. Don't do that. And
So
it's like,
anal about the
oh
home.
my God. Which I get. Like, that is a rule in my house too. Like, all of our bedrooms are upstairs. So it's like no one is eating upstairs. But
Right.
it's kind of like you're like different right now. You're hosting like a TV show, like basically. And
Mhm.
I feel like if anything would have gotten dirty, Bravo would have
Would have
definitely
paid for
paid
it.
for it.
Right.
And
If
I
she
bet
would
they
have
gave her
complained hard enough.
money.
Yeah.
Like, for hosting, you know what I mean? Like, they're probably
Mhm.
like, "Oh, like, we'll pay for, like" I don't know, I'm just totally guessing, but, like, "We'll pay for, like, the gardening cleanup before and blah, blah,
Because
blah."
they
Like
want all that to look nice too, so they're gonna
mhm.
have to put some money up, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I actually would be excited. I'd be like, "Okay, let's
"Oh,
redecorate the whole
my
house
pool
on
needs to be
Bravo."
cleaned." Right.
Yeah, yeah. Need to retile the bathrooms.
Yeah, all of it.
But yeah, I thought that scene was a little wasteful as well, and the kids were, like, carving pumpkins, like, that was cute, but like you said, like,
It was cute, but it was
maybe not
also like a
finale.
throwaway. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But then so they're all getting dressed in their gangster-esque outfits. Rachel said she is gonna sport that fur coat because she did not get to wear it to the Berkshires, and then Margaret is saying to Joe, "I'm gonna let Jackie have her moment, and then after I'm gonna say, 'Jackie, Judas Goldschneider,'" and I was like, "Oh my god," because out of everyone in the whole season, that was the biggest joke that Jackie, who I always thought was probably the smartest one on the whole cast,
Right.
is so sad and needs to be on the show. And I agree with Margaret when she's like, she's a fame whore. She would sell her own mother to be on the TV show because I
Mhm.
feel like, yeah, her being friends with Teresa, which I don't even know how she could be friends with her after
Right.
all the trouble they had because day one, they didn't like each other. Because she's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, do you think you could control your husband? Then he wouldn't be in jail." That day, Teresa like wrote her off in her brain. Like, if you say one mean thing to Teresa, I feel like you can see it in her face. She's like, "Oh, yeah, you're dead.
Right, you're done. Yeah.
You're done." So for her and then the cheating thing with Evan, so for her to be so stupid to think that they're actually friends was the biggest joke the whole
Mhm.
season, and she's sitting back while we get that information, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that Jackie was doing to Teresa the whole time.
Mhm. Full time.
whole time. So they all arrive at Rails, and Dolores has those cute floral arrangements with the little Italian horn on it. I was like, oh my God, these are all so cute. And then Jen Fessler's like, okay, so we're going to sit everyone across from each other that doesn't like each other, which was pretty crazy. But we had Louie just asking Teresa, like, oh, how are you going to act with Margaret at this lunch? She's like, I'm just going to sit back and watch and let it happen. And then that's when he said, like, oh, I wish harm and nothing but the worst on Margaret and her son and her family because we're suffering and our kids are suffering. I don't understand how their kids are suffering. I don't understand. Like, I don't know if
I
people
think
see Gia on the street and are like, "Oh, your stepdad's a creep." I don't.
right. I don't get it. I feel like for Louis to not only have those thoughts that he wishes that her family would suffer, but to
Mhm.
actually verbalize them and say them out loud is so sickening. And then
I know.
Teresa is nodding her head. And I think it can go one of two ways. She can be nodding her head because she agrees and she really is that person. Or she could just be nodding her head because she's thinking in her head, like, wow, my husband is unhinged and I'm just going to go along with this right now.
I think a little of both because
Mhm.
she looked so like she was almost groomed. And I hate to say that word, but that's what it looks like. Like he has her fooled.
Yeah, she is definitely under the influence of her husband. And I think a lot of it goes back to Joe Judice because she never learned how to properly be in a healthy relationship. And
Mhm.
she was with Joe for how many years? And then she's with Louis, and it's another shit show of a man. Sorry, Joe
Mhm.
Judice, but it's another shit show of a man. And she's doing what she's always done. And that's, exactly what she did, nod her head and agree.
Yeah. I know. It is just awful too. Like how would he feel? And now we have it on camera. Like what if Margaret got in a car accident that day and you
Right.
said that? Like that is disgusting. Whatever if you would like to think that even though that's mean too, but to say it on camera,
Hmm.
that's why it's just like it's getting to the point where like is Bravo going to watch these episodes and go, "You're like a liability, Louis. We got to get rid of Teresa just because of you." I think that's what
Right.
people don't get either. It's not just the people on the show, it's their whole family. Like,
Hmm.
you're having private investigators come and cause all this stuff and all this weird stuff's happening and that's never happened before. So you're ruining it.
Right. Like Louis will be Teresa's downfall.
Mhm.
And when the day comes, it'll be all his fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I think more his fault, yeah, than her fault.
Absolutely.
But she said, "You know me, I wanted to keep the peace while my parents were alive." I hate that she, like, always says this too, like, it's almost like she's saying, like, "Oh, I hated Joe and Melissa, but I was just faking it for my parents and
Right.
trying to keep the peace, and now that they're gone, I'm not talking to him, and my brother knows me, he knows that I mean that." And then it shows Melissa talking to Joe, and they're having the same type of conversation, but his is just more like, I feel bad for him because I feel like he just would like to have a family relationship. But he's
Hmm.
saying, like, you know, I feel like if Louis wasn't here, it would be different. And all the things they've said and done to us, how do you just move past that? I don't want toxic in my life. And I always wonder if because now it's kind of coming out, I feel like they regret cutting Richie and Kathy and Rosie off because back
Hmm.
then he did it for Teresa and look where it got him. Like he
Yeah.
is loyal to Teresa.
Yes, he never had an issue with Kathy or Rosie. Only issues they had stemmed from Teresa and Kathy. So then Melissa would get
Mhm.
involved. And that relationship, I mean, it sucks to see the way it is. I did see that, Kathy bought the plot of land across the street from Melissa and Joe, and that they had, a little back and forth shade throwing on Jeff Lewis.
Mhm.
But yeah, Joe was loyal to a fault,
Mhm.
100% to Teresa.
I know, and, she would never do that, and she never did, honestly, on the show that we
No,
witnessed.
never did. Never
Like,
once.
people would be so mean to Jennifer Aiden, calling him a bitch boy, and then Teresa's like, "Yeah, well, you are," and it's like, how do you do that and then think they're gonna be nice to you?
Right. How do you think they're going to, yeah, show love back if that's the way that you are carrying yourself?
Yeah, and then she's just I wanna know, like, she said, like, "Oh, people are gonna see the true colors of my brother this season and blah, blah, blah," and it's like,
Yeah, what was that all cut too? Because I missed it.
yeah, I'm like, "What are we gonna see that we are gonna think he's a what, him throwing the card in the fire?"
Right. I mean, that was dark, but that didn't change my, opinion of him. It was a heat of the moment
Mhm.
reaction.
Well, and to me, you're a weirdo. Like, you don't want a relationship. You say they're dead to you, but you bought like a $200 bottle of alcohol that he used to drink with your father and wrote a housewarming card. Like,
And Teresa said that it wasn't her or her idea, that it was Louis, but
mhm.
I guarantee you it was her lawyer, James Leonard's idea.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought of that.
100%. I mean, without getting too much into it, I feel like anything and everything Teresa does is controlled by either Jim or Louis. 100%.
Yeah. Did you love when Margaret, the last episode, was like his office is in Atlantic City next to a meth clinic?
I was like, she was going hard. She did
I
not
know.
hold back.
I know. It
She
is
said
weird.
something
It's
about,
like,
she was like, my lawyer is on Park Avenue or something.
In Manhattan. Well, that's the lawyer they use for, like, them being in jail. I think they were gonna serve time no matter who their lawyer was, but, like, I don't know if I'd still want the same lawyer.
Did you know that Danielle has used James Leonard as an attorney as well in a suit that was filed against her?
Oh, Danielle Cabral? Or stop.
She's used him too. Yeah. So I'm like, is
Fascinating.
Jersey that small or is he that? No, he's not. He's a weirdo. But yeah, she used him also.
And that's interesting because Atlantic City is not down the street from them.
Right.
So he has to drive far or they have to drive far. I don't know. It seems like he likes to be on TV too. I don't trust
Oh,
that.
definitely. Definitely. He always inserts himself.
Yeah, and that's what
Side
I mean.
character.
He's driving all the way up to Teresa's house to be on camera. It's like, okay. Um, but Melissa was just asking Joe, like, okay, so like you don't want me to even attempt to reconcile or be nice with Teresa. I'm just asking. That's why I'm like, see, she seems like she would just go with the flow. And she has a
Mhm,
huge family. And thank God for that for Joe, because he is like they're in Italy right now all together. So at
mhm.
least he doesn't feel like he's alone because all he had was Teresa. His parents are gone and he doesn't talk to his cousin.
Right. It seems like he's very embraced by Melissa's family, which is always a
Mhm.
nice thing to see, regardless.
And they have such a big family and they all get along.
Mhm.
And I heard that Teresa doesn't talk to either both or one of Louis' sisters anymore.
Oh my gosh. So right before we got on this phone call, I'm in a group chat and I asked in the group chat whatever happened to Louis' sisters because we don't hear or see from them and we used to always. And
Mhm.
somebody in the group chat said that they both unfollowed Teresa, both of the sisters. Now, whether or not they were ever following her, I would assume.
Mhm.
And I don't know when this happened. I don't know how far, how long ago it was, but they don't follow her, supposedly.
It was just funny because, like, to derail for a second and talk about that wedding. I mean, Melissa has been with your brother for like 20 years. Even if she's not your best friend, you should have her in the wedding party over two people that you just met last year that are like Louis' sisters. I
Right.
thought that was so rude, and I don't know what she thought would come from that. Like, "Oh, I'm gonna have Louis' sisters in, but not you."
Right. It was, I mean, they've had so many gut punches already, but I'm
Mhm,
sure that was like the one that was like, okay, we know where we stand. This marriage is not something that we are welcoming and accepting of or even accepted in right now.
mhm.
Um, yeah, totally a shitty move.
Yeah, because it's just like, I love my sister-in-law, and she was in my wedding, so I can't say like, "Oh, I just had her in because she was," but I feel like looking at that situation, if you've had someone in your family for so long and she had Teresa in her
In
bridal
her
party back
wedding,
then,
right.
like, just have Melissa up there. You have, like, freaking 400 guests. What does it matter?
Exactly.
Why do you need to cause a family uproar and prove a point? Because she's like, "Well, it's my wedding day. It's what I want." And it's like, you should just do that so you can get along, though, to be copacetic. That's how
That's all you had
family
to do.
works. Sometimes
Yeah,
we do things to just keep the peace and be copacetic.
because you're with these people the rest of your lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel bad. That's sad. But, yeah, Joe is just like, "I've put it to rest," and then when they're showing the montages of the family back in the day, and I'm like, "We are
Mhm.
never gonna get those old episodes ever again." I
We are
love
never
to
getting
watch the
those
old
back.
ones. We're never getting them. I want a Jersey Christmas, but it's sad
I
because no one talks to their family.
I know. They need to only play repeats of The Real Housewives of New Jersey in black and white from now on.
I know, actually, it's so funny. The other night when they had them, like, up, like, their picture, the opening credit, and then it went, like, black and white, I paused it and took a picture because I was like, "I feel like I need to make a meme out of this. This
I
is
need
so
to remember this
Godfather-esque."
moment.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, "This is so Godfather. I gotta, like, take a picture." It's like, then that was them, like, the Last Supper. Well, they keep referring it to as the Last Supper, which is funny. But, yeah, so they're all rolling up into rails. They all got their fur coats on, and then everyone is like, sitting across from the person they hate the most. So everyone's like, whatever. And Teresa arrives last, and she immediately, "Oh, I'm not sitting across from Margaret. No, no, I'm not doing that.
She'll be
No."
wearing my food is what she said or something, and it's like,
Yeah.
"Okay, we're coming in hot."
Yeah. That's why it's like, yes, I have always liked to watch Teresa on this show.
Mhm,
I may not always agree with her, but I did always like to watch her on the show. It has come to a point where you are so miserable to be on the show. You get paid so much money. I had to pause it and I went off like a tangent to my husband last night. I went, "You get like $2 million a season. You can't even be pleasant or just sit down across from Margaret for that $2 million." That's why, like, if Bravo was watching all these episodes, I would be like, "This bitch is spoiled and she just thinks she's going to run the show, and she is
mhm.
not. She is a employee of us. Like, she thinks she's calling the shots, and they have kind of given her that, I feel like."
They really have. They gave her a lot of power in this show.
Mhm. Whereas Melissa sits there, she can sit with anybody but Teresa,
Mhm.
and is like, "Well," and honestly, she even does sit with Teresa. You know what I mean? Like, she's
Yeah.
sitting in the room with her right now because Teresa went on Kelly Ripa's podcast this week or last week and was like, "I will never, ever, ever film with them again. Like, even if there's 200 people in a room and they're there, I won't go." So she's almost making it like, "Well, then we have to get rid of you because,
She's
like."
giving ultimatums, and she
Yeah,
doesn't have the upper hand here at all.
yeah, yeah, because I wouldn't be telling my job like, "Oh, no, you're gonna listen to me."
Right, no,
Because also,
no.
I feel like if she loses that paycheck, that's I wouldn't be pushing that.
We're gonna see another book deal.
I know, I mean, she makes a lot of money. So I would just sit at some of these things and shut up, honestly, and
Yes,
just pretend the people I don't like, which is just about everybody in the room, I feel like for her,
mhm.
I would just talk to Jennifer Aiden and Jackie.
Earn your check a different day, just sit down for this situation, handle your business.
Yeah.
No.
So Danielle and Jennifer Aiden kick it off and they talk first. So it's still about this charity event. Now, I think it's very rude to talk about money. Jennifer Aiden is just like weird like that. She's always been nosy the whole time she's been on the show. Remember, she was asking Jackie, "How much did your house cost in the Hamptons?" She's very intrusive and rude with the money stuff.
Mhm.
And her thinking that people that run charities don't pay themselves back for the costs, and that's like weird. I I don't know what planet she's living on, because unless you're like Kim Kardashian or Jeff Bezos, like, people have to pay themselves back for what they spent. Now,
Exactly.
if Danielle is, like, paying herself, like, to appear there and not volunteering it, yes, that would be something else, and that
That's
would be
different, right.
wrong. But, like, the food, like, the catering, so if you go to a charity event and you have, like, a sit-down meal, like, why would Danielle pay for the sit-down meal?
Exactly.
Like, I don't know why Jennifer just thinks that's totally awful, but they're still talking about that. And then she's like, "Oh, well, you can't afford to throw the party and blah, blah." And I'm like, "Oh my God, here we go." As always, I feel like Jennifer is the provoker. So then what
Mhm.
Danielle does after, I'm not saying it's right, but don't poke the bear. So
You
then
know the bear is very active.
yeah, so they're already, had that squabble with the plastic glass. And yeah, she's like, don't have a function if you're poor. And then
Mhm.
Jennifer's, they get into a little husband talk. So you could say Danielle kind of brings it up, but not really. She doesn't talk about specifically Bill or anything mean about Bill. She just
Right.
says, which I'm sure is a true fact. She said, "You cry in that big empty house alone." And I like how she's like, you have 16 like rooms, but they're all empty. And I could see that. Like
Oh, yeah.
Jennifer's house so big. But then it's like when you look in a room, it's like there's 2 chairs and a table in it. And
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, I'd rather have a smaller house than
To have it
some
be
big
filled. Yeah.
ass house empty. Like, remember when Joe and Teresa like first went through all their money problems and had to sell all their stuff? Then you went in all their rooms and like it was like empty, all the rooms. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, that's why you don't live above your means. It's
That's
weird.
why you don't have 16 bathrooms if you're only gonna shit in one.
Yeah. I don't even know, like, even if you have a cleaning lady, like, you'd have to spend so much money on the cleaning lady just for scrubbing the
Right.
16 toilets.
Too
But sh
much. Too
yeah,
much.
she's like, "You cry alone in that big house," and we already know Bill did cheat on Jennifer, so we know that their marriage isn't perfect, and he does work a lot, and he hangs out in that pool house probably still, and she probably does feel very lonely in her marriage.
I could see that, I'm sure.
So Danielle's kinda, like, hitting a nerve saying all that, and then Jennifer just takes a turn that was totally uncalled for, in my opinion, and she said, "Yeah, your husband has the boobs and you have the bra." In, like, a split second, Danielle just, like, lunging, and then that is when, because we already heard the spoiler alerts, that the water pitcher just goes flying, but it all happens so fast because
And
I
they
thought
showed it
water
from
was gonna
Danielle's
be
back, so you don't see right.
yeah, I'm like, "We need multiple angles, where are all the cameras?" And then
Mhm.
they were showing, like they said, "Look at Teresa jump up," like, I saw these clips,
She was like a
like
bodyguard. She was in
yeah,
it.
and I'm like, "Yeah, what's her skinny little butt gonna do? She's so skinny right
She's
now, like,
90
what's she
pounds
gonna do?"
soaking wet.
Yeah, and, yeah, and I guess nobody got soaking wet from that water pitcher, that's why I was very confused too.
Yeah, there's a little part where you see, uh, Jennifer with a napkin on her face when Melissa and Teresa are yelling back and forth to each other, but it didn't seem like anybody got soaked or anything was broke on anybody. It wasn't
Mm,
this, it was that in itself was anticlimactic,
yeah.
just because it was built up to be a bigger thing than the glass against the head, and I don't think it was.
Yeah, that was, like, more intense, I thought, because also they
Definitely.
were physically touching each other in that other fight, that was, like, really intense. But, Danielle, like, leaves the room because the producer comes out of nowhere and basically is like, "You need to get out," and I'm like, "No, we can't have her leave,
I
this
thought for a
it just
second she wasn't. I
started."
was like, no, don't leave.
Yeah, I was like, "Wait, it just started." And I mean, let's get real. None of these ladies are gonna, like, stab each other to death. So, like, "Oh, I feel, like, harmed," or, like, "She needs to leave." It's like, I knew that, like, she probably wasn't gonna leave, and they're probably gonna just double check with Jennifer, "Is it okay if she stays?" And that's what they said, and she's like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, whatever." But, she can't just, like, be calm. She's just like, "Whatever, I don't care about her." And then Danielle's out in the hall because she needs to like collect herself because, like Dolo said, when we ride hard for our men, when you go after them, we get mad. And that was mean. So I like saw today because I said to my husband, I said, I wonder if like Nate used to be fat or something because like for that to hit a nerve. And then I saw
Yes.
her post today and I
Today I was gonna
shared
say
it.
you see her post, right.
And yeah, he used to be heavy and I don't think he has man boobs. Like he doesn't need a bra. Like I think Nate has a good body.
Okay, so a little like background for that, I guess, is that Nate had a procedure done where they like basically get rid of the extra fat, so like get rid of your man boobs, I guess. So he
Oh,
had that procedure done and Jennifer knew about it and kind
that's
of like
mean.
threw it in their face. Well, what doesn't make sense to me is that Bill Aiden has a TikTok, and he's on TikTok promoting the same surgery because obviously he's a surgeon. But he also, in one of the videos, talks about how at 45 he himself had this procedure done.
Really?
So yes, I'll have to send you the TikTok after this. So
Yes.
for Jennifer to make that comment, it was kind of just like it missed for me after I saw that. I was like, so Bill had this procedure done, Nate had this procedure done. Who gives a shit? Don't
Well,
come for
and
somebody, don't body shame somebody. I don't care if it's a man or a woman. That's body
Mhm.
shaming.
And good for them, like, good for Nate, like, if he used to be heavy, he looks wonderful now. So I
Absolutely.
would be
He's a
loud and
good-looking
proud.
guy.
Yeah, I would be proud to say, "Yeah, I had to get, like, this surgery because I used to be fat and I'm not now."
And I wanted to get rid of this extra skin. Who cares? And I feel like Jennifer knew exactly what she was doing. She was poking the bear. You're right, exactly like you
Mhm.
said.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, "Oh, no, now you, like, did this to me, but I said this for you to do that," basically. Like, I know we
Mhm.
should control ourselves, but sometimes you can't say stuff like that. Like, I'm not gonna have control if you're gonna be that mean.
Right, right.
And she's one to talk. Like, I'm sorry, I feel like she gets liposuction every year before the show
Yeah,
starts.
isn't she very open about being on a semaglutide or Ozempic, or she was
Yeah.
very open about being on something?
And getting her bad nose job. She said she went to Turkey to get a nose job. Your husband's a plastic surgeon.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Why would you, first of all, not to like down leaving the country to get plastic surgery, but I feel we're probably the best.
I would
So
feel
why
safe
would you
to
go
do
to
it here.
Turkey? Why would you go to
Right,
Turkey to get a nose job? And obviously it wasn't good. But then
right.
it's like your husband's a plastic surgeon. You obviously don't even think he's good because you're not even getting the nose job from him.
Makes no sense.
Because I think he does everything.
I think he does too, right? He's
Yeah. I'm a firm believer, though, that if someone says they do everything, you're not good at everything.
oh, that 100%. That reminds me of the boring Anne Marie from Beverly Hills when she was like, my husband says I'm an 8 at this, I'm an 8 at this, because I can't
Yeah.
be a 10 at everything. So if you're a 10 at that's what it reminds me of.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes, she was terrible. I'm glad we're not going to see her. She was a waste.
Yes, hardcore.
Um, but so Danielle is collecting herself. Dolores is like, "You got this, Danielle," like pep talking her. Love that. And she's like, just like sobbing. She's very upset. And then Teresa comes out and she's like, "Yeah, well, why are you like," I don't even remember what she said, but she's talking about herself. And I love that Danielle goes and looks at her and she says, "This is not about you right now." And I'm like, "Thank you. Somebody says that." Like,
Mhm.
it's like, why are you out here? And it's like, Teresa, we know you're best friends with Jennifer Aiden, but it's not wrong for you to come out to Danielle, who's supposed to be your friend too, and say, just come back in there like, "That was me and Jennifer
Just give
said
her a
that."
little pep talk and then move on.
Yeah, or just say, "That was me and Jennifer said that."
Mhm.
Like, if you and Jennifer aren't gonna be friends after you saying, "Oh, that was really mean, you, like, said her husband had man boobs," then maybe you shouldn't be friends with that person.
Yeah.
Like,
You just need to validate her feelings, you know?
yeah. So, Jen Fessler is like, "I'm peacing out, not into this." But then I'm like, "Girl, have you watched a episode of Real Housewives of New Jersey? Like season 1, Teresa's pouring a whole dinner table on Danielle Staub with that
Right.
book." So it's like, have you ever seen this show? Like, I feel like we're used to it being like this in Jersey. Like, if this happened on Beverly Hills, we'd be like, "Oh my God." But Jen Fessler thinking it wasn't going to happen like this, I'm kind of like, okay.
What did you
But
expect?
yeah, and
Right.
then Melissa's like, "Wait, she's the one of the hosts. 1 or 2 of the hosts is leaving."
And she's
And
like,
then,
"No, bye."
yeah, but I was dead when, so now we have to backtrack. So as soon as the fight happened and they're trying to push Danielle away, and Teresa's like, "Cut it out." She's like, Melissa's like, "You're the queen of it." And then she calls Teresa white trash, which was interesting. But I feel she called her that because back in the day, Joe Giudice used to call Melissa white trash, classless, because she's
Oh.
from the shore.
Ah, see, I never put 2 and 2 together. She probably did, and that's why she said it.
Because now she's probably thinking like, "Okay, back then your husband thought I was white trash just because I'm from Tom's River. Like, who cares?
Mhm.
Now I could call you white trash because you and your husband actually went to jail," which is a little trashy. And
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it was always very mean, all the things Joe Giudice would say about Melissa. And you know what? At this point, I don't even care if that girl was a stripper. Like, who cares? Who cares?
Yeah, if that were to happen like today, I feel like Melissa would have more supporters than
Yeah.
you know what they would be like, oh yeah, we're rallying around her because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, if she was doing that, she was doing it for money. And she doesn't do it now, so like who cares?
Right, exactly.
Because she was actually paying her bills while you and Joe Giudice weren't.
We're not.
But then they have that standoff and they're like,
I thought that was
like,
cute.
just
Like I was like, that was cute. I wasn't mad about it.
that was so funny. And then she's like, whore, my brother married a whore, whore, and just keeps saying whore. It's really terrible at this point. She is calling Melissa a whore because we've never had hard evidence that she's ever cheated on Joe.
Right.
We've never seen pictures or anything. So we're going to go with that. She's never cheated. I find it comical that now Teresa has come out and said Joe Giudice cheated on her,
Mhm.
that he had a secret phone with a woman. So you're going to like throw stones at a glass house, say they have a shitty marriage. Your man was cheating and had a separate phone for someone. And don't tell me in Napa Valley when he was on the phone, he was talking to a woman. He wasn't talking to
Oh,
no worker.
no, it was a woman.
Yeah, he's like,
100%.
oh, don't tell me that. Like all like weird, sexy voice. And then as soon as she comes over, he's like, oh yeah, Trace rock, uh-huh. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
that scene was
yeah,
cringe. It is, even
yeah,
still thinking about it.
yeah. It's almost like it was sad. She was like throwing herself at him, like, why aren't you over here? Like, love me.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, then Melissa's like, I'll tell Antonia you called her mom a whore. So she did involve Antonia for once. And then so after this, this is when all Joe and Melissa's kids unfollowed Teresa
Okay, is that what it
on
was?
social media. Yeah, like
Okay.
obviously, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. She came home, probably told Joe,
Yeah.
nail in the coffin, done. I can't even believe like everything your sister's done, but her just standing there calling me that, it's done. It's
Yeah.
enough.
If you didn't already know, then here's
Yeah.
your reminder.
Yeah, or like, I can't believe my brother married a whore. That's why I do like kind of believe that like, well, she says she worked at a bikini bar.
Right. And I feel like back in the day, all of the nasty things that were coming out that Teresa said she didn't do or didn't say, she totally did. Because look at how open and freely she was like, whore, whore. Like it came out like it was second nature to her. Like she talks so much shit and probably says that and has said that about Melissa for years. So it just felt natural
Yeah.
for her to just yell it out.
Caroline Manzo, remember back in the day, she's like, Teresa told me, Melissa's a whore. She's a
Mhm.
stripper. She's with my brother for money. You totally said all that stuff.
Definitely did. Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it was solidified last night, honestly. But then they all regroup. Danielle sits on the same side as Jennifer on the end. So they can't even look at each other. So that's good. I'm glad she didn't leave. But then it is time for Teresa and Margaret to talk. And Stu Nod, hardhead over there, Teresa, I feel like doesn't even want to hear anything that
Mhm.
Margaret has to say because Margaret's ready to drop the bomb of Jackie Judas Goldstein.
That's still so funny.
I know. I love it because I'm like, you are Judas. This is so textbook like Bible
It's so
Judas.
funny that she said, like thinking about her saying it. That's just one of my LOL moments of the episode.
I know. So Jackie is sitting there denying that she talked to the ex because Margaret's like, you talked to her first. And she said that Jackie had Vanessa at her house. And then everyone's like, I like post I made the meme of it. It's Melissa's face wide open. And it was like my
Everybody's
face.
reaction. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jackie's still sitting there saying no, no, no. And then she finally like it's like silent for a second and she looks at Teresa. She's like, I met with her. Oh my God. And you could see Teresa's face. She went, what? And
You
then
could
like,
see that it was like, what?
yeah. And then she's like, I met with her. And then she's like, oh, okay. And then Margaret, like, she's like, oh, okay. And then Dolores is like, are you okay, Teresa? Is anybody in there? Like,
Did you hear what
you
she
need a
just
minute?
said? Like
Yeah.
everything you've been accusing Margaret of for the
Yeah.
last 3 years. Guess
And you know
what?
Dolores doesn't like Jackie anyway. Like she'll be nice to her, but after that slob comment, she's like, "You're done. You're
Yeah,
done
she's
with
done.
me." Yeah, but she'll be cordial, which is nice. And Margaret said that Jackie is the one that leaked all those weird cuckoo banana videos of Louis doing the warrior stuff. Because if you think about it, the only person that had them was Vanessa. So Vanessa would have had to give them to somebody to get them out because she was on a strict order of like not talking about
Mhm.
Louis or doing bad stuff to Louis and vice versa. I feel like that's why James Leonard had to come and even talk
Because
about
they
that whole
couldn't
court
talk
case.
about it. Right,
Yeah.
right. Yes.
So because people are like, that's so weird he was there. And I was like, well, I feel like he actually had to be there because I feel
Mhm.
like they're not allowed to say anything, which is
Yes.
crazy. But I believe Margaret. I think Jackie leaked those videos. And Jackie, it was like sitting there saying, yeah, this was when, Teresa was calling everyone in Tenafly to see if my husband cheated on me. So the ex reached out to me, which I do believe that part. I'm sure they're like, "Hi, I have dirt. Do you want to hear it?" And Jackie's like,
Right,
"Ooh, yeah,
right.
let me hear it." And she's like, "I just wanted to keep this in my back pocket in case." And I'm like, "So you wanted to be friends with Teresa, who caused this whole turmoil and made you relapse on your eating disorder. And then you wanted to have bad ammo and an arsenal, as they would call it, like to use back at her, but you want to be friends with her and you guys think you actually have a real friendship?"
Right. And even now being friends, knowing what you know, how is that a real friendship?
It's not.
It's not.
It's not. And it was hilarious earlier in the season when Teresa's like, "Yeah, I don't give a F about Jackie. I'm just using her because she probably knows stuff about Margaret." And I
Mhm,
truly firmly believe, like, maybe if she's in a picture with her now and again, it's just to prove a point for Teresa.
mhm. I
It's
think
like
it
last
totally
night.
is. I think that she completely swept everything under the rug with Jackie just
Mhm.
because she hates Margaret that much. She wants
Yes.
Margaret to be the fall guy for everything. She doesn't care that Jackie was involved. It's going to be pinned on Margaret no matter what.
And because she's come so far to prove that it's all Margaret, 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 she can't now go, "Oh, oops, actually, I made a mistake. Sorry, Margaret." She doesn't
Right.
want to give her the validation. So Teresa's sitting there and she goes, "Yeah, no, Jackie, I'm not mad at you. I understand why you did it." And then Melissa goes, "Oh, we're still mad about the sprinkle cookies, but that's okay." And, like, some people, because you got the 2 sides. You got the tree huggers, and then you got the Melissa Gorga fans. Somewhere in the middle, sometimes people are in the middle, but the tree huggers are all like, "Oh, look at her talking about the sprinkle cookies and blah, blah, blah," and then the Melissa fans are like, "No, she's just making a point of, like, Teresa holds a grudge for the
But this was no
stupidest
big
shit.
deal.
But yeah, this is fine, even though you look anorexic and have had a terrible year and have no friends and family
Mhm.
anymore
Mhm.
because of this creepy guy you're married to."
Mhm.
Because, like, I feel like if we never saw those videos, I don't know if people would have started thinking Louis was creepy.
Right. I feel like everything that was being put out against Louis, like the pizza oven thing, the
Mhm.
videos, the exes, the ring, like all of that stuff was outside of the show, besides Pizzagate, was outside of the show. So for viewers that don't know about all that, they're probably like, why is this guy so crazy? Well, here's why. There's 10 reasons why.
Yeah, and then, like, how about, like, Teresa's not friends with Dina anymore? Because she can lie and say they are. She
They're
is not.
not. They're
They're not.
100% not, and that's actually sad because I'm a big Dina Manzo fan,
I
and
know.
I thought they had a real relationship,
Same.
and to see the complete demise of that because of what I heard was a bad Louis and Dave,
Mhm.
conversation of some sort. It's sad because he's
Yeah.
now alienating and isolating her from the people in her life.
Yeah, because Joe Gorga said he knows Dave, and he's like, "He told me it was Louis." So it's like, that's what I mean. For me, it's like, yeah, I don't know any of these people behind the scenes life and, like, I don't know. We don't know. We're just basing on what we see on TV. But if everyone's saying you're bad news, Louis, you're probably bad news.
Mhm.
It's not
Exactly.
just like one person, it's like everybody, business,
Mhm.
family. It's like, and just their guys' nights, like, how creepy was that?
It was weird.
He's like, "Oh, we're all gonna sit down and film this devotional video." It's like, He's a love bomber.
Oh, definitely. It was weird. Well, side note,
Yeah.
that was weird. And he is a love bomber. And you would think that it would have like faded or fizzled out by now, but he's still that person even after they're married.
I know, like, when they were showing, like, all the old episodes, during the week, like, last week, it was the episode when they were first dating, and they were on that boat, and he had that, like, scroll written for her, and I'm like, "Okay, the boat?" Like, because 'cause I'm not saying, like, I don't want, like, you to do nice things for me, like, please spoil me and do nice things for me. So the boat would have been fine,
Right.
but the scroll with, like, your profession of love to me, no, that's
No.
creepy. It's
All of that together and then the whole Jackie situation made Teresa look terrible. I
Mhm.
think that to conclude the season and potentially the series, she didn't go out on a bang. She didn't go out on a high. She didn't go out looking good. None of the above.
Mhm. No, I agree, and I hope we never see Jackie again, to
Never.
be honest, because
Never.
goodbye, and then when they're all leaving, I love when Dolores is like, "Jackie needs a diaper,
She
for
was
the car ride
walking like
home."
she shit herself.
I know, I know. I was like, "What's wrong with her walk? Like, why is she walking like
She
that?" And then
really
she's
does
like,
need a diaper.
I'll call you later, Teresa,
And
alright,
then
bye."
around the corner, you see her backing up.
Yeah. To try to listen. Yeah, I saw somebody posted that today, and it was like, "This is the most embarrassing walk of shame ever," and I was
It
like,
really was.
"Truth, because you have no friends because you decided to switch sides, and that side isn't very loyal."
And you weren't truthful and you look like a fool.
Yeah,
She
and
did it all to promote her book.
yeah, it's
Like,
like
it
when you've
wasn't worth
already
it. It
done.
was not even a New York Times bestseller.
Did you die though when she said that to Jennifer? When Jennifer
Yes.
Aiden was like, "Oh, how's the book? Are you selling books?" Again, always money. She's like, "Oh, are you selling books?" And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, I thought I was gonna be a New York Times bestseller." And then in the confessional, Jennifer is like, "Not everyone can be Teresa Giudice."
Right.
But it's like it's true because like even if you like don't really like Teresa's book, you're gonna buy it just to like have it.
Mhm.
And that's how you get New York Times bestseller because
Exactly.
people are like, "Oh my God, I just am really a fan of you. I want to get your book," or like bring it to like your book signing. So you sign it. So it's like,
Mhm.
Jackie, why do you think like anyone wants to buy your
You
book?
don't have fans, Jackie.
No one even wanted to watch you on the show.
No.
Like,
So
no
she's
one's
done.
going to want to buy your book, let alone you be such an extreme bookseller that like, I couldn't imagine her book. It's probably all freaking whining.
Oh, definitely.
Because
I've
Dolores was
been
like,
nowhere near that book. I don't know.
no, no, never. Dolores is like, I don't know how Margaret put up with it all that time because she's just complaining,
Mhm. Yeah.
which she is. She seems like it's in correlation with the type of like eating disorder and stuff. She's very insecure.
Mhm. It all stems from that, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So that's when I feel bad for her because she's insecure. But then it gets on my nerves when she looks at people like Melissa and like at the earlier in the season when she's like, "Oh, don't even talk about that, Melissa. Like, what? Now I can't be friends with Teresa." And she's like, "No, you could be friends with whoever you want, but I'm never going to let you forget about how she affected your life because you
Mhm.
told me because we were friends."
Right. To say that you completely relapse your eating disorder, that's major.
Yeah,
Major. I would never be able to look at that person again.
I know. But now you want to be
Weird.
friends with them. It's because you
Weird.
have to remember, like, Jackie was like a fan of
She
Teresa's.
was.
So I feel like she loves that she's at her house and now they're friends. But to me, it's like, well, why didn't you just be her friend from the beginning?
Mhm. Exactly. Exactly that.
But it's instead because that this has been common denominator for years. You are either team Teresa or team Melissa. Like you
There's
can't
right.
be friends with both of them. So we got good Dolores sitting there at the end all by herself. She's like, I don't know where we go from here. And then the sad montage of when they did have fun together. And I know some people are like, oh, if there's not drama on the show, I don't want to watch the show. It's like, I like petty drama, but I like to watch when they have fun. I like when they go
Yes.
on those cast trips and like, eat and drink and, like,
Mhm.
stay up late, like, I
Like,
don't
act like
need
the
that.
housewives of New York. Everybody. old and new Housewives of New York.
Yeah.
They can dish it, they can take it, but they go out and they have fun. And I love to watch those scenes. And that franchise especially has those scenes where they go out, they have fun, you know, they can laugh, they can drink, and then the next day they can argue, but they can get over it.
Right. And it's just like you can't hold the grudge. You have to remember it's like, yeah, we need a little petty drama for TV, but like now it's gotten so dark that I don't know what's going to happen. So that'll lead us to our next discussion. What do you think is going to happen?
I love New Jersey. It's my number one franchise. But I feel like last night was like a close of that chapter of New Jersey. I think that we need a total reboot of New Jersey. And when I say total reboot, I don't mean any of the cast members. I think that we need to go New York style, give it a nice long break, and then reboot it as something newer and fresh. I think that if you want to give somebody a spinoff, if you want to give Teresa and her daughters a spinoff, go for it. Although making it in Manhattan, I do know Teresa has filmed with Gia for it, so we're going to see her on that. I think they need a total, as much as I love the cast, I love the ladies, I think that they've delivered for, you know, the last 10 years. But last night really made me see like there's no resolution, there's no real relationships, there's no stories outside of this dark Louis, you know, scandal that's going on. So let's just toss it. Let's completely start over. Let's go New York style. Let's fix it. Let's make it nice. Let's go that route.
That's interesting. I know. I would hate to see it totally rebooted because Jersey's my favorite also.
Yes.
My theory would be keep Melissa because she gets along with everybody. Give Teresa her own show with the daughters and then actually kick Jennifer Aiden off of Housewives, but have her kind of on Teresa's show as a friend.
As a friend, yeah. See,
And
we
then
have
maybe
two totally
Dolo.
different ideas, and that's what's crazy about it is we don't know where
I know
it's going. We have no idea. I think that they should totally reboot it. You think, you know, something. So it's like the fans don't even know.
I know. And it's like, because we can't do another season because last year, remember, everyone was like, oh, Melissa and Joe are going to be fired. No one was fired.
Right. Nobody was.
Like we thought after that wedding stuff and not coming, like that they were going to be fired. Nobody was fired. But now not having a reunion, which I do understand why we didn't have one. At first I was so mad and I'm like, oh, that's such a chicken move. But I'm like, no, that was like a reunion. That was good enough.
Yeah.
And then what they do next week is going to be like a reunion. They're all going to sit down and like watch it. But then I'm like, are you going to watch other stuff? Because like they were all there.
Right.
So
I'm
I don't
curious
know
to see how next week will play out.
I know. The one thing I do wish though that like Dolores is kind of going to be like the mediator because she attends both. The only thing we missed from the reunion is I like when Andy looks at them and says stuff. Like I would have loved him to look at Teresa and say, now, why are you holding Jackie and Margaret to different standards? Because Jackie brought this woman in and you don't care. But it's like end of the world that Margaret did anything.
Those are questions that Teresa, unless she does in the after show, I didn't watch the after show yet. Those are things that Teresa's never going to have to be held accountable for or answer for because we don't get that reunion. And she's not on from what I remember, she's not on Watch What Happens Live next week.
No, yeah, because she's already been on it.
Right.
And
So
then
there's
she did,
no
like, the
there's no
party.
answering for that. Right.
Yeah, I was glad Dolores was on the other night though with Danny Pellegrino, which I love.
Yes, that was a good duo.
Yeah, and then oh my God, it was the Andrea Lopez. That's her name, right?
It is.
I love watching her videos. Like, so she impersonates Teresa and she impersonates
The
Kourtney
Kardashian.
Kardashian. Yeah.
Yes.
And her friend does Kris Jenner, which is so funny. Her friend's funny too. She does like Steve from Sex and the City, and
He does. They're a good duo. Everybody should go follow Andrea Lopez. She's hilarious.
I know, she's so funny. Like, so Andy was just asking her questions all night, like she was Teresa, and he's like, Teresa, what do you think? She's like, well, you know, I don't talk to my brother.
It's all love, love, love.
Yeah,
I can't even do a Teresa impression. I'm going to leave it to her. I can't.
No, I know, because she's like, if you close your eyes, you think Teresa's talking. It's that good.
Oh yeah.
She's funny. So I thought that was a great. I like when they have someone funny as the bartender, because sometimes they have like local businesses, which is like cool. But I'm like, those people don't even talk the whole time and they're not like funny.
Right, right.
So it was fun to have her. And I love Danny Pellegrino and I love Dolores. I'm like, God, of all times, I would have loved to be in the audience.
I know. I was a caller for the night the night before they did the taping, I was a caller, a virtual call-in, and one of the people that I could have talked to was Dolores, and I was like, oh, I missed it.
Oh, I know. When I had the official Bravo mom on, she has been on to ask a question before.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yes.
was like, oh, I want to do that. But
If
I
you
would
want to
have
do
loved.
it, I'll tell you how to do it. I'll send you the info because I've
Okay.
done it 5 times.
Wow. I
Yes.
knew you had done it before, but wow, that's pretty cool.
Yes, it's always fun to do because it's like you feel like you're there. You get to watch the taping as it's happening. You're hooked up. It's fun.
Oh, that's cool. Remember the time like back in the day when the caller like derailed and asked a different question? It was to Kim Zolciak. And she's
Yes,
like,
I do remember
oh,
that.
and Andy's like, that is not the question that was supposed to be asked. That was funny. I was like, I kind of want that to happen again.
Ruthless.
Like
Shout out to that person. I wonder if they're still in the Bravo universe, if they still watch Bravo. That was funny.
they were probably like banned. They can never call in again.
Right?
That was funny. But okay, so you think there should be a full reboot. And I mean, they always said it was hard to cast Jersey. So that's the only reason why I'm thinking they won't fully reboot it either, because that would be hard. And I would feel really bad if they did a full reboot for Danielle and Rachel because they just got there.
Right. They just had 2 seasons. They only had sophomore
Yeah.
seasons.
And like poor Dolo, like she should get to stay. She didn't do anything. And
I know.
I don't know. Like some people that are diehard Therese fans are like, oh, like everyone else needs to go and Teresa needs to stay. But it's like, who would stay with Teresa? Dolores
And who wants to
Jennifer?
watch just Teresa and Louis? Because I've seen
Yeah.
people say Louis does not represent the tree huggers.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the other thing. So if we have to gun to the head, pick Melissa or Teresa, who do you want? Because with Melissa, we get Joe Gorgon. He's funny. And with Teresa, we get creepy Louis.
Mm-hmm. It's
So
like we all know where that would fall.
Yeah, so it's like just for that, I don't want her. And it's like for me, that's why I think it would make sense if they gave her a spinoff. So therefore, Bravo isn't technically making her mad.
Mm-hmm.
The tree huggers could watch her show. And we could get, like I said, Jennifer Aiden and like Dolores on that show. And Jackie Judas Goldschneider, maybe even.
Yeah, no, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. And then on the other one, we could, have everyone get to keep their job, which would be
Yes,
nice.
that would be
because I
nice.
feel
It
bad.
would. Yeah.
So I don't know, because sometimes I feel like Bravo does the opposite of what the fans say.
Mhm.
So I'm like, oh, what are you going to do? Like, I don't think anyone really wants a full reboot, even though I do see people write that, but the majority I don't think want that.
Right. No, I feel like the majority don't want the full reboot. I mean, it's going to be early next year until we even know
I know.
anything. So we have some time to really think about it. I'll
Did
tell you
you
if I
hear-
change my answer.
I know. Did you hear what Andy said on his radio show?
Mm-hmm.
Like at first he said, oh, we're going to fully reboot. And that's like all I heard. So then I made a post about that. And then like 2 people wrote under my post. They're like, this isn't true. And I was like, okay, but like he did say it. But then he did say, like, I thought he was done having the conversation with the woman. But
Right.
then
He like
listened to
clarified.
it
He
again.
was trying to get her off the phone is what he was doing.
He hated that woman. I know.
He did.
And then he's like, all right, goodbye. And he said, I don't know, maybe. And then he's like, or maybe we'll just get rid of some. So he backtracked, but he did say a full reboot.
So we'll see.
I know, we'll see. Ugh, makes me nervous thinking about it. But my favorite question is, what would your Housewives tagline be?
So I've thought about this during our talk, and I think it would be something along the lines of, I would like do my dramatic turn, and then I would say, if you want this smoke, well, I have it.
Oh my God, that's good. I like that. I know you got to do the dramatic turn.
Right? That's
with
what I
like
could
your
come up
family
with.
in the background.
My little kids and my dog behind me.
I love that. I know. I love like when people like have, Louis not in Teresa's, which is
Oh,
interesting.
he's not. See, my husband would be in mine.
And then Paulie isn't in Dolores's.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But it may be because they did it a little while ago.
Maybe.
Like when Teresa and Dolores were like single.
Yeah, but people notice.
I know. No, I noticed. I was like, oh. And no, I think Frank is in Dolores's.
Oh, you know what? He is. He is.
We didn't get a lot of Frank, which is sad.
I know.
He's being replaced by Paulie. I like Paulie, but like, we heard that they're getting married in November. Frank and Brittany.
Oh,
Last
yeah.
night
She
on
saw
Watch
she
What
had her
Happens Live.
bachelorette party.
Yeah. And I know they said before they're getting married in Florida. So I guess that's the same thing. But Dolores said the kids are in the wedding and they rented a house. They're going to go down. So
Well, that's so nice.
I know. I feel like Paulie wishes that like Frank and Dolores weren't close. But I think it's nice for the kids. And especially
It's the
like
lifestyle at this
Frenchie
point. There's no changing it. That's their life, you know?
Yeah. And there's no reason to be threatened because Frank is literally getting married to somebody else.
Right.
So it's not
Exactly.
like you're stepping back in on Dolores. But
No, he's not doing that at all. No.
But tell everybody where they can find you.
Oh my gosh. Hi, everybody. You can find me Instagram and X is where I thrive at the Bravo Babe. I do have a TikTok. I'm still like navigating around it. I try to post when I can. That's also at the Bravo Babe. So yeah, check those out. The podcast is called Gossip with Bravo Babe, and you can find that Spotify and Apple and YouTube.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And
Thank you for having me. I had fun talking with you.
I know. I'm glad that we picked this to recap because I'm like, I can't do this one alone. I want.
No, that was a fun recap.
About the finale. Thanks.
Of course. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
As always, this was so fun, and you could find me on Instagram at BravoT with the Stay at Home Mom, Spotify and Apple. Till next time, see ya.